Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Orthodox Banter with Boyan, and to everyone who's celebrating Christmas today, Merry Christmas, Christ is born, glorify Him. My church celebrates Christmas on the Old Julian calendar, and the 25th December of Old Julian calendar is on January the 7th of the Gregorian calendar. So I will celebrate Christmas in less than 2 weeks. But anyway, may the Lord bless you abundantly on this day when we celebrate, well, when most of you celebrate His nativity, that even in this chaos and darkness and this whirlwind of evil that constantly engulfs this world, one little baby born in some off cave somewhere defeats that very world. This got me thinking about the very usage of the old calendar in quite a lot of Orthodox churches like Serbian, I think Georgian, definitely Russian, and so on. And I simply wanted to share some of my thoughts on this issue, because I don't think that when discussing the calendar in the Orthodox Church, it tends to be framed in the sense of, ecumenism. It tends to be framed of Pope made it, therefore bad, the fathers left us the old Julian calendar, and so on and so forth. And quite honestly, I feel that a lot of these are very bad arguments, and I might as well simply go, through a lot of them. For example, the it's ecumenism. I mean, it could be seen as that, but I think that is less of an issue. I think that personally we have much a bigger problem that we have two calendars in our own church, but I'll turn to that later on. Pope made it, therefore it's bad. Well, a pagan emperor made the old one, and it's not like he was something specially divinely inspired. In fact, the very fact that it lags behind a more precise calendar indicates that's the second thing. And the third thing is the fathers left us this calendar. They didn't leave us that calendar. The calendar was simply there. The Christians used the most widely used calendar, and because they were that uniting force, of course, that one calendar sort of ruled out all others. And like 16 years later, another calendar was made. However, I think that there is an aspect of the calendar issue that people who promote the old calendar generally don't mention, which I find kind of silly when you boil it down to, It comes to this. What is a year? Does a year indicate the rotation of planet Earth around the sun? Or does the year indicate 365 days? Which of these two? And if your pro-rotation model, that rotation of Earth around the sun, one singular rotation, is a year, then you should be in favor of a more precise calendar. I don't want to say Gregorian calendar, because Serbian scientist Milankovic made an even more precise calendar than the Gregorian one. So I will use that as a reference point, which was the calendar that was actually adopted by the churches that currently use the so-called new calendar, but that's not the Gregorian calendar. If you think that a year is defined by a period of 365 days, then you should be in favor of the old calendar. Now, this may sound weird, because you might say, well, these are synonyms, because it takes the Earth 365 days to, go around the sun. But they're not. They're nearly identical, but they're not, because, the Earth's rotation, of course, it does not align perfectly with the Earth's rotation around the sun does not align with Earth's own rotation perfectly, and of course that in the end the year is not exactly 365 days. It's, a little bit longer than that. And over time that adds up, and then we have to have leap years in order to align the number of days with the rotation around the sun. And I think, I apologize, I think this is the major problem with the old calendar, because it has leap days. It knows that the calculation is dead off. However, its recalibrating is off. I mean, it's still better than not having it at all, but it's still off. What I'm trying to say is this: for all of the proponents of the old calendar, is there some magical, mystical number to having, 365 days in a year? Because the way we celebrate a lot of feasts today does not simply align to reality. For example, if Saint George here, here, if he died on May the 6th, or we have approximate knowledge of his martyrdom and we celebrate his feast day then, so he died if we look at the rotation as this, plate, if he died in this segment, but we celebrate it sort of here, then we are not really, honoring his anniversary. We are honoring something approximately close and ever so far, getting ever so further away from his actual anniversary. Again, because the Julian calendar, I think it has too few leap years, so it lags behind. That is why I'm celebrating Christmas in 2 weeks. In fact, I know a lot of Orthodox were like, yeah, I'm celebrating then because the church celebrates then, but I know that Christmas is today. I'm not of the opinion of that. Again, I have my own view of things, because I'm like, the church here in this space at this time says that I should celebrate Christmas on January the 7th according to the secular calendar, and they will, because I personally don't particularly care, in the sense because the Lord won't abandon us how we look at the stars and the moons and the new moons and festivals. The Lord doesn't really, get so hung about it, which is what St. Paul says in his epistles. However, if we, think that the church is a living, breathing body of Christ, that it's ever new and not a museum for dead languages, for obsolete calendars and everything, then we simply need to get on with the times. And none of this, again, when I say get on with the times, none of this falls within the dogmatic teaching. Now, there are parts of the there are parts of the where was I going with this? There are, of course, things from the old calendar which we still need to, uphold, and these include the dating of Pascha. And yes, there is a major issue of Apostles' Fast practically disappearing on the new calendar. However, we also need to remember that this fast isn't a fast that was there from day one. Actually, I don't think that any of them were including Lent. The Lent was basically Christians joining in with the catechumens as they were preparing for baptism. Essentially, Lent is a huge renewal of your baptismal vows, if you want to look at it this way. And of course, because death and resurrection of Christ plays a huge role in actual baptism, there you have it. I think, there was something I wanted to mention later on, and of course I forgot it. This is why I should have notes. But the thing is, I don't think that the calendar is a major thing. I think that the newer calendars more adequately reflect what the concept of anniversary is. I don't think that there is anything remotely magical in the number of 365 on its own. The sole reason we have that number is because that was the best approximate length of a year, like some 2000 years ago. We are much more precise now, and we shouldn't fear whatsoever in changing that. However, much more importantly, we should listen to the church. I have a Greek church here. I won't go there to celebrate my own little personal Christmas, because that's not the Christmas of the church I'm a member of. I'm a member of the Serbian Orthodox Church in Serbia, so I will celebrate the Christmas when the church says here. I don't think that's a reason enough to get into a schism, whether it's because a new better calendar was adopted, or my own little personal schism because I think that the old calendar is obsolete, so I'll go to some embassy of the Greek church to celebrate, again, my own little personal Christmas. That's one thing. That's the second. And the third thing I wanted to mention, I think you guys know that I'm no fan of old calendarists, of zealots. And by the way, again, this is something I mention always. In English, old calendarist means a person on the old calendar. So technically, I'm an old calendarist. However, in Serbian, old calendarist means a sect of zealots who've broken away from the canonical church and have really strong missionary work among the Serbian Orthodox here in Serbia and elsewhere. So when I personally say the term old calendarist, I honestly mean the zealots who are in schism with the canonical church. The way they were treated is nothing short of evil. Those persecutions were simply despicable, disgusting. However, and I think it reflects a lot of what happened to the old believers in Russia, and the old believer, again, they were the ones who stood for the older tradition that they received. So if the old calendarists, like zealots, think that this new calendar is so horrible, then why do they actually support old believers and the saints who persecuted them and who are saints in their zealot calendars? There is some, and I understand that change, especially in Orthodoxy, is very suspect. However, persecuting them, even if they had their bad takes, was again nothing short of evil. However, it raises a huge question of, okay, let me put it this way. To whom does a church building belong to? Let's say that you have a bishop whose entire diocese goes into a schism over Arianism, over the old calendar, over old believers, and so on. Do those church buildings belong to that bishop, the clergy, the faithful? Or do they belong to the church at large? And if you want to say to the church at large, then you have a major problem of how to remove those people who call those very churches home for forever. Those are very complex issues. I do not pretend to know how to answer them. This is the entire issue with the Esphigmenou monastery on Mount Athos, because they oppose the current structure of the ecumenical patriarchate and the other monks and monastic community. But do you simply kick them out, remove them? And there were attempts to kick them out, which didn't end well at all, and it really does make the ruling structure look particularly bad. Again, I don't know. I'm just sharing my thoughts. So my question for you is, when deciding which calendar is better, is a year the rotation of Earth around the Sun, or is it 365 days? That's my question. And one final thing I want to share with you is, I do think that we should have a unified calendar. There is all this talk about having common Easter dating as the Catholics, not necessarily the ones that Catholics use, but some other new model. To be quite honest, I don't particularly care about that, but the very fact that we have two calendars in the church is silly and stupid, honestly. And I think that first we need to clean our home first. We need to have a unified calendar. And I'm much more pro having a unified calendar than having a correct one. So if the church in general wants to switch to the new calendar, old Julian calendar, that is fine by me because it's better than the situation that we have today. Sadly, the Council of Crete wanted to make some improvements there, but we all know how, well, I hope all of us know how that transpired. They essentially didn't do anything, and from what I could ascertain, it was an attempt by the ecumenical patriarchate to establish itself as this unifying force, which is all nice and dandy, but there are many other factors that want to present themselves as their unifying agents, which is the most Orthodox thing ever, like having this total disunity but still being unified. So yeah, that's it from me for today. Merry Christmas and Christ is born to all of you who celebrate today. Bye.